Okay, well, we've been looking at aesthetic theory in the era of the late 18th century, early 19th century in the context of German idealism. And so far, that German idealism has basically been one person, Kant. It's certainly true that Kant is he's the cornerstone for this. He's what gets so many of these ideas started. But in many ways, his importance isn't so much even what he came up with alone, but what it is that he provokes and inspires in the thinkers that come after him, that respond to him, that even disagree with him to some extent. And you can see that in the rest of the chapter with this whole host of names of thinkers that come a generation or two after, in some cases, after Kant. We're looking at these guys: Schiller, Schelling, Hegel, Schleiermacher, Schopenhauer. A lot of sh sounds in there. But all of these thinkers have a great deal to offer as far as aesthetic theory goes. We don't really have time to go through each and every one of them. They are actually all quite fascinating, but the purpose of this is to get a sense of the broader themes that are running through the evolution of aesthetic thought. And so to that end, what I want to do is I want to draw out a couple of major themes of these primarily German idealists of this period of the late 18th, early 19th century, and talk about the way in which they shape the tenor of the conversation around what exactly aesthetics is, what art is, what it is that it does, why is it important, how does it stand in relation to human knowledge, these sorts of questions. All right, and the way in which that leads us into the next great movement that I want to say something about, Romanticism. Um, if I had to draw a couple of themes out of this, they would be these. First is the idea of play. Now, play specifically belongs to one thinker in particular, namely Schiller, Friedrich Schiller, probably the greatest, appropriately enough, the greatest playwright in German literature, and no small philosopher himself. And we have to understand something about what he's talking about when he talks about play. When Schiller talks about play, and then when other thinkers coming after Schiller sort of take his ideas and comment on it, Schiller is not talking about play in the sense of silliness. He's not talking about it as haphazard or meaningless action. What Schiller means by play is sort of the spontaneous and creative combination of the sensuous and the formal aspects of our encounter with the world and making that into something anew. It's a kind of genius. So playing is a way in which one takes different aspects of their physical encounter with the world through dance and the way in which we move kinesthetically, the arrangement of sound and music, the arrangement of imagination and image and thought with poetry or story. Some aspect of the way in which we encounter the world, and we take that and use what the way he would describe it is our formal capacity, our capacity to reason, to observe paradoxes, to observe countenances, to twist ideas upon one another and generate something anew. We almost saw this with Kant to some extent, but Kant was still, for lack of a better word, a little bit stiff about the way in which he saw play. He thought that there was a way in which you sort of observed the senses that you had in your mind. So the sights and sounds and smells that you've observed and taken and the way in which you hold them in your mind and put them together and sort of give them this rational dignity that's very close to nature, but still having its own dignity and integrity, and that's what makes this genius work of art. Well, for Schiller, there's a way in which it's not even so much about the comparison to nature. It's about the way in which we bring the powers of us together. the sensuous aspect and the formal rational aspect together, and we generate a new way of being for ourselves. What we end up doing for Schiller, even more than for Kant, it's somewhat there for Kant, but it's anticipated. With Schiller, it is explicit. We come to wholly be what we can be. We achieve our humanity when we play, right? So that playing and sort of the beauty that comes from playing isn't simply nice. It's not even just this interesting dignity. It is this way in which we are almost, gosh, almost a Promethean possibility to ourselves. We come to be what we can be when we bring together our art, when we shape these forces in the universe that we imagine and bring them to forth for their own sake. This is a way in which human beings come to be what they are, right? It is, there's something deeply, deeply spiritual uh, about play and about the aesthetic dimensions of play. Not just childish play, but indeed not childish play, but the play of the active, engaged mind in the world. There's another theme that I want to talk about here. Comes up quite a bit, and that's the theme of intuition. Now, this is an idea that comes up in a lot of the German idealists, especially in Schelling, to an extent in Hegel, but it's in a lot of them. And basically what it is this. There's this realization by these thinkers that one of the things that art is capable of doing, and indeed the beautiful is capable of doing, is helping us see through the mundane world, the world of convention, the world that we think we know because we've been taught a certain way, because we're supposed to bring a certain methodology for accounting for things in a certain way down, to see through that and to see a kind of truth manifested in things. What does art help us do? Does it help us escape from the world? No. No, actually, it's almost the opposite. From the German idealist point of view, there is a way when art, and specifically the beauty in art, and the intuition that the artist brings in bringing together the sense of beauty, helps us escape not from the world, but to the world. What it helps us do is see the underlying reality, the underlying truth in things, in the events of the world, in political events, in social events, in the scientific, in the patterns that we observe in things, right? When we have a sense of this beautiful, the beauty in these things, what we're having is an insight into the way in which things really are. We are having, as it were, the scales of convention and common sense removed from our eyes so that we can participate in the underlying reality for that we live in. This indeed is why, for these thinkers, art, perhaps more than anything save maybe religion, inspires us. It inspires us because it awakens us to a reality that we ordinarily are actually quite asleep to. That there are these deeper truths, are these deeper ways of being that are in the world. And we have access to them. We are part of them. We can come to them. But it requires a tapping into the energy of what we are. And how do we tap that? Well, there's a way in which we can do it and have done it really since civilization has existed. We tap into this creative capacity, this sense of instinct, not just of instinct, of intuition, a sense of knowing the rightness of something that we feel and know and sense, and organizing it in art to evoke, to draw out the possibility of that in us. Art is freeing, not because it takes us to a new place, but because it takes us to the truth of the place where we already are. This is what we feel when we feel inspiration. And this, at the end of the day, is why art frees us. Indeed, perhaps, as the bumper stickers sometimes say, art saves us. So, German idealism.